The story is a retelling of the Battle of Thermopylae or Thermopylae. You say Thermopylae, I say Thermopylae. Let's call the whole thing off.
It's Thermopylae.
Thermopylae, apparently. Well, I stepped
Sounds
way
like the kind of
back.
thing we could debate for a very long time.
I was
would have
assured
thought that Mark is right.
Thank you. I was assured by somebody from Radio 4 that it's Thermopylae, and I'm not going to argue with them because they
who at Radio 4?
The weatherman. So, Battle of
Thermopylae.
Thermopylae. Yes. Have you always been saying Thermopylae? Every time it comes up in conversation, you say...
Which is a regular thing.
It is, the Battle of Thermopylae. Anyway, the story is
Spartans
basically...
and the Persians.
300 Spartans, right? A gabillion Persians. The 300 Spartans hold their own against the gabillion Persians for just long enough for the Greeks to get their act together and come and stand their ground. So, famous battle, written about by Frank Miller in this way of sort of, comic book heroism, that it's all about this Protean fighting army, and it's the basis of all democracy, and yada yada yada. Now, since the film's been released, there's been an awful lot of fuss about what it's actually about.
Well, is that the Battle of Thermopylae?
No, it's about the Battle of Thermopylae, but the question is, how does it represent the Battle of Thermopylae? Well, before we get into that complicated question, the film stars Gerard Butler as Leonidas, and the interesting thing about it is that presumably in these
a chocolate company?
It is a chocolate company, yeah. In these post-Braveheart days, the King of the Spartans is Scottish. Hey, hey! And he shouts all that whilst he's having his intestines pulled out because he's Mel Gibson and he's from Australia. And anyway, it's not shot in Scotland, it's all shot in Ireland as far as I remember. So, interesting thing about 300, I know everybody's pointed this out, but it is a visual film in which the Spartans not only choose to stand their ground against an umpty-thrumpty gabillion Persians...
250,000, just so we can be specific.
Yeah, that's a lot, right, when there's only 300 of you, but... They're 300 of you clad in posing pouches and nothing else. So nothing on their chests other than some baby oil, sweat and grime.
A bit of chainmail, don't you? A bit of
No. You see, you'd think you would. But basically, they look like they've just come out of the mine shaft on Christopher Street in New York after a hard night clubbing it along to Sylvester and said, what are we going to do? I know.
You know a lot about that.
Well, I'm very interested in that subject, as you know. I mean, I think one of the greatest overlooked movies of that period is Cruising, the William Friedkin movie, which I'm desperately trying to get reinstated because it's got all that missing footage of guys in those clubs dressed up as extras from the Village People dancing around wearing nothing but leather chaps and a smile, and I think that's an interesting period. And here I am watching this movie thinking, you know what? I think Zack Snyder thinks it's an interesting period too.
So the Spartans,
and they are dressed in a Spartan fashion.
They thought that they could tackle 250,000 Persians.
Yeah.
And what are the Persians wearing?
Well, the Persians are largely armour-clad or clad in stuff. However,
they shouldn't have lost.
No, but hang on. But the leader, Xerxes, seems to have walked out of Disco 2000 and has clearly come out of a Madonna video because he's got the whole bling thing going on. He's got all the gold and the strappy and the funny hat and he's got all the moves. Somebody pointed out, and
he's voguing, is he?
He is voguing. He's literally going, "You're not coming here with the dun 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 dun," and the Spartans are going, "Come over here and say that in our pouch." And it's like some, huge, great big. Well, if you're really interested in oiled men in leather, jock straps...
Are you saying this is a homoerotic film or
I
not?
think that it would be impossible to deny that is part of what's going on in the film. And there is one marvellous moment in which the Spartans accuse the Persians of being boy lovers, and it's like, I'm sorry, pot? Kettle? It's really not something that you want to get involved in an argument about that. Now... Up to a certain point, that's absolutely fine. I mean, I'm all for semi-clad oiled men shouting at each other with beards. That's fine. It's not a problem. The problem is that people start interpreting this thing politically, and some people said, "Oh, well, it's a proto-fascist tale in much the same way." I didn't say it. Other people have said it.
How big is this proto-fascist genre?
Well, there is a whole, it's, and people have compared it to Leni Riefenstahl. The whole thing about it's a sort of Nazi mentality. Other people have said, no, actually, it's a parable of Iraq. There has been statements from some people in Iran saying it's anti-Iranian. The fact is, none of the above are true. It is a film about well-oiled men in their pants shouting at each other. Now, that's all it is. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but historically it has nothing to say whatsoever. Philosophically, it has nothing to say whatsoever. Politically, it has nothing to say whatsoever. Aesthetically, it's just that. It is, it's pecs and abs and dabs and, and oil and sweat and grunting and shouting.
Is it all like a sort of a cartoon version of Apocalypto, then?
Yes, funnily enough, that's actually quite a good analogy.
Well,
but
don't sound so surprised.
No, because I was thinking on my feet about that is what it is. I was just obviously immediately going to shoot it down in flames because you'd made something up, but as I was about to shoot you down, I thought, no, actually, that's quite a valid point. It's nothing like as good a movie as Apocalypto, because Apocalypto was genuinely crazy and had a real sort of adrenaline-pumping rush because you thought the man who's making this is mad. In the case of 300, they're not mad at all. It's fairly cynical, kind of, the way in which the film is constructed is fairly cynical. And also, I mean, it suffers because the Queen character is played by Lena Headey, who was terrible in The Brothers Grimm, and she reprises her terribleness here. And it's a problem because, in a way, once her character, you really don't care about her character. You think, well, fine, it is basically just those blokes shouting at each other in mud.
Leonidas is not a very hard name, though, is it? If it just makes you think of Belgian chocolate.
No,
and
but
praline.
But apparently, what happened was that Frank Miller went to the place where the praline, incidentally, went to the place where the battle was fought.
Apparently.
Thank you. And there's a statue of him in the buff.
That could be Richard Curtis's next film, couldn't it? Leonidas,
actually.
Have you finished?
So there we go. So if you like oil, if you like leather pants, if you like the shouting, if you think Lena Headey's a bit rubbish, that's a problem. And then it's fine. It is too long. It tries its patience. But there are scenes in it that are visually arresting. It has nothing going on between its ears, but it has much going on between its abs.